Hi guys, and welcome back to Adam's Quicks. In today's video we're going to be talking about water changes and how I do them. So we've all struggled before with the buckets and the siphons and the sucking through a hose pipe, and I just didn't want to do it anymore, so I came up with a very different way of how to do it, and I'll show you how. So this is my box of tricks. So I'm not fancy enough or don't have enough money to have an auto water changer system, and that's something that I'm looking to do in my next fish room, which will be coming either this year or next year, depending on when I get to move. And so at the moment this is what I use. It's basically a PVC pipe cut into a U shape. It goes down into this quarter end, and then this is what I use to start the siphon. So I didn't want to have to use suction, like sucking through the hose pipe in order to start the siphon, because that's the last thing you want to do, because inevitably you're going to get a mouthful of fish poo, and that's not something that you ever want. I've done it before and I'm not prepared to do it again. So I have this drain here. This drain here goes down through the wall and out into my garden, and it waters the garden. Unfortunately, this drain was put in for a washer and dryer washing machine, and it's put at a bit of an odd height, so it does drain the top rack, these guys here, but it doesn't drain the bottom rack because there's not enough gravity to take the water down out of those along the wall and then out and up into there. So I just have to use this big bucket for the bottom shop. It is a pain, but sometimes it's just what you have to do. So the water that I use, I don't just use tap water for all of my tanks. I do for most, but not for all of my tanks. So in my breeding setups, I use RO water. So that's reverse osmosis water that you can buy from your local fish shop. I don't buy it from my local fish shop. I get it from a company called Spotless Water. They're usually used for cleaning windows, but it is RO water, and you can get it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at a dispensary, where you just go, you fill them up with what looks like a petrol station filling cap, and that's just how you fill up your tankers. So because you don't want completely demineralized water and you don't want to have just pure water in your tank, what I use Seachem's Equilibrium to remineralize my water. I put in 3 teaspoons for, that's 25 litres, that's 10 litres, so for 35 litres. And 35 litres is enough to change the water on all of my breeding tanks. So I'm not doing any big water changes today. I'm literally just doing the second of my twice a week. This is going to be a 10% water change on all of my breeding tanks. I don't change the big tank, and I don't change the non-breeding tanks every other day, every third day. I change them once a week, so normally on a Sunday, because that's normally my day off from work. So what I do is I put the water drainer into the tank. As you can see, it goes down quite far into the tank. I make sure that this cut-off valve is open, which it is, and then literally you just squeeze on this ball, and that's it. It starts the siphon, and then you just wait until it's drained down the amount that you want to drain down. So today I'm going to drain down probably to about here. Just wait, and then because I put the cut-off valve in there, I don't necessarily have to start the siphon every time. So literally I'll cut the valve off, which I'll show you, and then you move it to the next tank. And it literally, as soon as you open the valve in, because the siphon's already been started, it will begin to suck the water back out again and straight down the pipe. So it's relatively straightforward. So I've drained down as much as I want. You can see it's drained down about an inch. And then what I do now is I've cut the valve already. I couldn't do that because I don't have 3 hands. Lift this out. It'll drop the little bit of water that it has there. Okay, you make sure that it's not going to drip everywhere. You lift it. You move to the next tank. You hang it on the next tank, okay, and then if I can do this one-handed, you should be able to see it's starting to come up through the siphon, and then there you go. I didn't have to start the siphon. literally just move from one to the next. Again, do the same thing, drain it as much as you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain down all of my breeding tanks, and then I'll come back once that's done. Okay, so you've drained all your tanks down to the level that you want to drain them down to. And I'm only doing 5 today, like I said. It's basically just my breeding tanks today. And then what I do is I made this little filler contraption. So it's basically, it's just 2 bits of hose, and this is a transfer valve. It's used to transfer liquids. So you can buy it from a motor shop, so like Halfords, and then you attach a drill here. You fill up your bucket with water. So I'm going to empty these 2 into here, and then you mix up your water, and then you just transfer it in. So I'm going to mix up the water now, and then I'll come back. So the water's all in the big bucket, and the next thing I'm going to do is to mix in the equilibrium. So 1, 2, 3, in it goes. So I know that this water is pure and it's got no nitrates or nitrites in it, but I do still add prime just because I want to be 100% sure. You know, it's not always necessarily 100% that it is what they say it is, so just to be sure I always add some. So just a little bit of prime. You can also use safe. I do prefer the Seachem products because I know that they are what they say they are. Then I give it a bit of a mix up, make sure it's all mixed through. So a lot of people are going to ask, why do you not temperature probe it, or make sure it's the same temperature as your tank? So what I do is I make sure that this water is kept in this room for 2 to 3 days before I change the water. So literally as soon as I use the last lot, I get some more and I keep it underneath my second rack, so that it does get to the same temperature as the room, so I don't have to change temperature probe. So I know it's the same temperature as these tanks because the tanks are pretty much all the same temperature. And if there's a sway of 1 or 2 degrees, it's not really going to cause too much of an issue. So that's it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach my drill here. I'm not going to show you how I do this because it is quite loud, but I'll come back once it's all done. Okay, so that is all of the water changed in all my breeding tanks. Took about half an hour tops. The main bit is the draining of the water that takes the time just because you have to wait for it to drain. And yeah, that's really about it. So there's obviously lots of different ways to change water. I've shown you the way that I do it. You can just simply use a bucket. It can be just as quick. But one thing I will stress is to make sure that your water quality is always really spot on, because that's just really what helps the fish grow. Like, especially in breeding setups, it's not necessarily as important to do water changes 3 times a week on, like just your regular standard community tanks. And as you can see, I don't do that. I just do that just on my breeding tanks because I need to make sure that the water parameters are spot on at all times. And that is it. I will go and now add some carbon dioxide mixed to all of the tanks, just because that then helps the plants grow. I don't inject CO2 because it's just, number 1, too expensive, and number 2, I don't feel like you need it. So yeah, that is it. If you've liked this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.